actually creates further disease. And out quite quickly, I was just like, I'm not supposed to be in the army. So I got out of the military and I started working at Porton Down. Well, it's called a city called Salisbury because it's got a cathedral there, a very famous cathedral, which houses the Magna Carta. And Porton Down is where they do lots of trials and testing on chemical, biological, and psychological and energy weapons. And all under the guise of Ministry of Defence. So I was doing a project manager role there, and a lot of the tasks I was getting was in quite high profile places. And
AJ Roberts is a 15-year British Army veteran turned entrepreneur, coach, speaker, and host of the AJ Roberts Show podcast. Drawing from his military experience, AJ inspires high performance and personal development, emphasizing mission-driven consciousness and uncovering hidden truths in today's world. His podcast explores military operations, executive orders, veterans issues, and societal impacts while advocating for empathy and mental health in the armed forces, delivering raw, authentic insights to awaken awareness and cut through the noise.
Shoving a pointless stick up your nose and getting you to do it yourself. So you're giving your autonomy away by shoving a stick up your nose to break the blood-brain barrier, which connects to your third eye or your pineal gland, which in essence is our sacred microchip, right? Which is our intuition, which helps you work all the bullshit out, and then obviously you have the crown in the top of the head, which connects you to source, and that is what they wanted to shut off in everybody. So that's why, the poisonous jabs were very much about shutting off the hearts of people and shutting off the head of people so they can disconnect us, because of the times we're going through now. So it's all absolutely linked. And in essence, it was a big operation psychologically as well to keep especially men in like the base 3 energy centers, the base 3 chakras. And this is again a heavily programmed agenda. And it's the same in your country, same here, same in the United States. They basically shut the hearts off of men. So
AJ Roberts, thank you so much for your time. It's an interesting journey you've got. I follow you on Instagram. I look at a lot of the stuff you are doing. You're doing wonderful things. But for people who are new to our audience, can you take us a little bit through how it all started? Obviously, a military band, and I assume left school, signed up, and then the world takes you in a different direction.
Yeah, I think the key word there is different direction. So I think we've all taken astounding directions over the last 5 years, let alone our entire lives, yourself included.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things push us into certain trajectories on purpose. It's not till later on down the line we kind of realised that a lot of our experiences are in essence our basic training for now. And I always really kind of emphasize that because you don't need to have been a soldier in the military to actually be a soldier, because we're all in essence soldiers, and we've gone through our own version of basic training in different ways, whether that's through sport and then into media, or whether that's actually being in the military and then complete 360 turnarounds to do what I do now, which is very much spiritual mentorship, facilitation, and I have a podcast of my own to kind of back that up. And that's evolved somewhat over the last 5 years, from getting out there onto the streets in UK, interviewing people and reporting on the protests initially, to do lockdowns and COVID and such like. And a lot of what I've seen, and I guess what's built my own version of events, is based on my own experiences. So, I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, seen things with my own eyes to kind of warrant the backing that we've been completely manipulated and used, and as part of this wider deep state narrative throughout the whole world. And whether you're in Australia, the United States, Canada, or Europe, it's all there to be seen, that the stronghold that the monarchy and the and subsequent government has on the people here in the United Kingdom, and subsequently the military as well. So as it stands, the British military has been probably one of the most compromised in the world as a result of that stronghold. And I saw it all with my own eyes. I was in Iraq and saw there was no weapons of mass destruction. As I joined the military at 19, I joined as 9/11 happened in 2001. So I literally saw 9/11 happen. It's probably the same in Australia. Back in the day when you used to have TV and video rental places and stuff, but used to have all the televisions in the front, windscreen. There was a place across the road where I was working in a part-time job, and I'd actually just finished playing football down at Bournemouth, actually, who are now in the Premier League, so funnily enough. And I got injured and kind of didn't make it through the youth system, but not injured enough to stop me from joining the military. And I saw 9/11 happen on one of those televisions. I was living with my grandfather at the time, the legend himself there behind me in the portrait.
Yeah.
He's a Second World War veteran, second man to land on Juno Beach in 1944. Actually captured the tallest man in the German army as well, which is you can Google that. Corporal Bob Roberts, for those of you who are interested. And he was my greatest mentor, and still continues to be, even though he passed during COVID. And I didn't sit right with me, the whole 9/11 thing. It was just an instant kind of knowing. So I kind of wanted to look into it more, and my grandfather didn't think it seemed right either. And he was always of sound intuition, and I kind of worshipped the ground he walked on, really, and learnt so many of my best lessons. And that led me joining the Royal Engineers. And while I was in the Royal Engineers, obviously you do your basic training like any other soldier. And then when I joined the Royal Engineers, you learn extensively about explosives. So we're learning about steel cutting charges and things like that. And I'm kind of like going, hang on a minute. And this is obviously um, the iron's still hot, excuse the pun, regarding 9/11. And I was like speaking to people going like, don't really watch the videos, watch the videos, watch the videos. You could see explosives coming out. And this was in early 2002. So, I then went into the whole of 2002, basically gearing up for the war on terror. And then, with the plan going to Iraq in 2003, with the rest of the quote unquote allies. Same story, different war. And to take down these weapons of mass destruction and take down Saddam Hussein. But in the end of 2002, early 2003, we were then instructed to go through the anthrax vaccine program.
Yeah.
And I had one of the course of three, and it absolutely wiped me. As in, I've never felt so ill in my life. Clearly, my body was supposed to reject it, but also wake me up to like all vaccines. So that was 2003. So I had all that experience and knowledge then. Then went to Iraq, seen there was no weapons of mass destruction, but also I could see that the British troops and Allied troops were obviously being belt fed all this bullshit around anti-malaria tablets and stuff like that, and they were giving people Lariam. I remember staying like in the first few weeks, you stay in like quite big tents with a large body of people. And I remember waking up like and seeing guys like beating their pillows up and stuff because of having crazy dreams because of these tablets. So it was just all of that was just like we're literally guinea pigs, And this is back in 2003. I was seeing this. I then I got out of the military for a while in 2013 after having been to Afghanistan in 2011 2012, and again seeing all the poppy fields being looked after when allegedly 80% of the heroin on British and American and Australian streets is allegedly comes from Afghanistan. So I'm asking questions like, why aren't we burning the poppy fields? These farmers will take any kind of money. So we were clearly looking after them, and you could see as well from the way by that point, 2011, 2012, how the Taliban, their tactics and how they moved, and even how they held their weapons, you could see they were receiving some kind of training. So I was seeing all this with my own eyes, and I've always been very, very curious since I was a boy. I've been obsessed with ancient cultures, ancient buildings. Probably why I joined the engineers. Just kind of fascination of how things are made. Get all excited when you're building a bridge and all this kind of stuff. Proper like boys and their toys type thing. But that came with a lot of knowings very early on, and I think because of that curiosity and open-mindedness, I was never really kind of shut off to everything like they purposely do to a lot of soldiers. They spend a lot of time doing deep programming on soldiers, and you have to look at like when you start basic training here in the British Army, and it's the same in other countries, that immediately rushes your enemy. As soon as you go through the door, Russia's the enemy, the East is the enemy. Playing on the Cold War rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, just constantly going around in circles, making you fearful of an alleged enemy. And that's what they do with every war. They often make the enemy themselves. So there's always two sides fighting. So we know now clearly that the Taliban was trained by the CIA and other Five Eyes agents, whilst using our own troops to fight them on a battlefield in a country that's actually notoriously rich in minerals. And we have to look even more galactically than that. They're in Iraq and in Afghanistan. There's notable and credible evidence of large stargates there that produce very large sources of energy. So, it depends which way you want to look at it. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at it from a minerals point of view or from a high dimensional energy source. Like that's what a lot of this is around. To harvest all this as much energy as possible, stop these places being activated because of the ascension of the planet, and use their own troops as like some kind of sick ritual. Because and obviously there's civilians as well. Hence why we still see to this day everything that's happening in Gaza and Israel. Israel carrying out daily genocide, when actually it's a deep dark ritual. To take out these highly spiritual, grounded, and native people to one of the most holy lands in the world. And it's just a rinse and repeat. They just do it on different battlefields, but the template is very much always the same. So I worked all that out quite early. I left the military 2013 and actually moved to Australia. Lived out there for 2.5 years with my family, and on the Gold Coast, which is beautiful. And had a gym out there, but unfortunately we got kind of screwed over by an investor, and it literally forced us really to have to move back to UK. But to be honest, as I said before, everything happens for a reason. We're driven down these paths and aligned to where we're supposed to be. And I think someone like myself being locked down in Australia wouldn't have been very good for Australia, and and myself. So I was the wrong type of person to be in lockdown, in especially in some areas in Australia, like Melbourne and Victoria, which I noticeably interviewed a lot of people during the old scam, and how totalitarian it all was. It's crazy some of the interviews I was doing. I had to come back to UK and I rejoined the military, but only for about 2 years, and I quickly seen like what was happening to the military in just that short space of time, going from genuine, real guys and girls who wanted to serve, serve humanity. You were actual soldiers, who had massive hearts. They all got out, after Afghan kind of died down, and lots of them worked out that it was all bullshit. And I was seeing like the quality of soldiering completely diminish. There was just a massive onslaught of wokeism being brought into the military. Like they were pushing LGBT constantly, all this kind of stuff, whilst trying to force you to have your hepatitis B jab every year and say, call it a booster, which is just full of toxic metals and dumbs the soldiers down even more. Actually creates further disease. And I got out quite quickly. I was just like, I'm not supposed to be in the army. So I got out of the military and I started working at Porton Down. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what Porton Down is, it's a place just out, well, it's called a city called Salisbury because it's got a cathedral there, a very famous cathedral, which houses the Magna Carta. And Porton Down is where they do lots of trials and testing on chemical, biological, and psychological and energy weapons, and all under the guise of Ministry of Defence. So I was doing a project manager role there, and a lot of the tasks I was getting was in quite high profile places. And you may remember the Novichok
Yeah.
situation where these Russians were allegedly poisoned by Russian people. Funny enough, in Salisbury, and the only team in the whole of UK that can deal with such nerve agents is based at Porton Down in Salisbury. So if you're gonna release something or allegedly release something, you're gonna release it right next to where the team is that can deal with it. So I asked the question straight away: why wasn't this in London? Why wasn't it to create even greater panic? Why Salisbury? It became very obvious. And I was doing a job in a single synthetic facility there, which actually produced nerve agents. And I saw that they actually had Novichok in vials. So I was like, well, they're actually making it here. So I can clearly see where it's come from. And it was all used for, anti-Russian propaganda before COVID even started. So it's a systematic psychological plan to put the people into fear. So when COVID started, there was already division in place. Um, so COVID then started. I then started my podcast, but I already had a podcast anyway, which was I was interviewing, lots of people that have got amazing stories, trials and tribulations, and I switched fire basically to first reporting on all the statistics. I was getting people on that were like mapping the statistics of like so-called cases and stuff like that, and the viewership ramped up quite quick. Obviously, that came with a lot of hate. At one point, I was in a WhatsApp group with over 100 service personnel who was basically anti-AJ, saying that I'm going to get loads of people killed. People were sending me screenshots who kind of infiltrated the group, and there was people calling for like my kids to die of COVID, and it was very very nasty. That didn't stop me. I used it as a tool really. A lot of these people have actually contacted me since, and very, very apologetic, but very humbling as well, and are actually doing the things we should have been doing from the start, and not giving our power away, and opening our eyes to all the bullshit. Um, but yeah, I was reporting on the pandemic. I was reporting on the protests. Obviously, the very large protests in London. I attended lots of them. Met some of the most amazing people, and still speak to you now. I wouldn't change any of that for the world. It was a difficult time. Like many of us, all around the world who took this stance, suffered a lot of losses. We lost a lot of family. We lost a lot of friends. We were financially hit big time. Um, but I think in the face of it all, it's not to deter any of us from standing our ground. In essence of wanting to protect the people, and actually, from a masculine perspective, standing up and being that masculine energy, which is lacking hugely. And I know it was in Australia, it was definitely here. But I think about 80% of the people that were turning up to protest were female. And it's still something I work with now, is helping females step out of that masculine energy, propping the guys up, because that's what they've been doing, and standing, rigidly in their feminine energy, which is what we've needed in every country. So yeah, I was interviewing everybody from everyday teachers in Australia. One teacher said that she wasn't allowed to even teach kids on Zoom unless she was double jabbed and all this kind of stuff. It was mad. You know what I mean? Just like, where's the fucking logic? To actual doctors around the world. I interviewed Dr. Peter McCulloch, who's quite well known now, cardiologist in United States. Brian Ardis, who's very well known. He's brought forward a lot of valuable information, credible information, to naturopaths, and even taking it even further than that, down the highly spiritual side of things, the esoteric side of things, and the galactic side of things, to try and kind of bring it all together, for those who are very much on a deep awakening path. Because 2020, as much as we could slag it all off and say it was horrendous and say awful this, awful that, it's actually woken the planet up. Because as I was showing many times, the planet itself started ascending in into higher densities in 2012. So pretty much since then, it's actually been a war on us. A lot of people only recognize it from 2020, but actually from 2012, it's been a huge war on the population. It's been a huge war on us to poison us even more, to dumb us down even more, because they knew what was coming, which is what we're experiencing now. The Great Awakening, or the Great Shake-up, whatever you want to call it. And it's actually quite beautiful to see. So, as it's taking that step back, being the observer, like any good soldier does, and sees the battlefield with a wide eye. You can literally see everything that there is to see. And I guess that's been the the precipice really of my journey is and my own growth really, because I've gone from being on the protest, like putting out a lot of I would say angry content, but like in line with where the people were at, to like now showing people what literally they're all about, and actually the sheer power of us, from head to toe, and our children.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing summary from where you've come from. I touch on that. You mentioned the warfare, and for a man who's been in military, obviously it must have been pretty difficult sitting back and biting your tongue because it's almost a system where you're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and what you need to do with a plan. To then going, hang on, I've got free thinking here, and it's not resonating with me. How hard was it to wrestle with what you felt was right or what you were told to do, and clearly being on contrasting styles here or on opposing sides?
I think I just I took the lead on a lot of stuff and just like kind of did what I thought was best, and that often resulted in things going extremely well. I didn't treat the guys like they were kids. I always made sure, and this is what like any kind of leader should do really, in any kind of outfit. It doesn't have to be just military, but I treated them like they were all a commander as well. You give them that power, and they kind of live by that on a daily basis. So you're not in a a conflict zone then having to literally micromanage every single person around you, as well as keep your head down. You know what I mean? So you're fully aware, you're fully responsible, surrounded by people that have got their shit together. That's what's really, really important. Um, so I kind of just focused on that really, but at the same time, you're surrounded by people who make quite idiotic decisions. You're surrounded by people who aren't their authentic self. And this is the same in the corporate world, it's the same in like the police, healthcare, any of it. Whenever there's a ladder, you're always going to be surrounded by people who aren't their authentic self, because they're always acting differently, to get to that next step. Um, but when you're surrounded by genuine, authentic people, you can't go wrong. So I kind of just focused on that really.
And you mentioned the psychological warfare, and obviously from a military lens, we're currently, and people are saying, a fifth generation warfare right now. And people listening might go, "Oh, come on, rah rah," but it really is a battlefield a little bit for the huge human mind, isn't it, at the moment? Because it's if you control the mind, you control the thinking, you control the money, you control everything, all the decision making.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And people are a lot of people now are seeing the mind control techniques. Funny enough, one of the things that Porton down that they do is they run mind control, you know, exercises and techniques, and have done since like World War II. Because this isn't subject. We're not subjected to mind control techniques just in our lifetimes. Our ancestors have all been subject to it as well. It's like all the young men, women, and boys even, fought on the front lines, and that was subjected to grave mind control to, basically, lambs to the slaughter on beaches. World War One. Where's the logic in getting thousands and thousands of people lined up in trenches to run over the top into machine gun fire, hoping you get to the other side? For king and country, it's absolutely mind blowing. But it's all about the battle for the human mind, and to harvest our energy. So the psychological techniques that are used, the mind control techniques that are used at an individual level and also at a collective. So if you can manipulate the consciousness of a person, you can literally program them. So I always like to use the terminology of having somebody's head in a box, and on each corner of those boxes around the head is a construct, or an entity that all work hand in hand together to keep your head in the box, your mind. So you've got like law, healthcare, media, military, government, all those kind of things on every single corner. So, and that's why we use the term think outside the box, because as soon as you take yourself outside of that box and you observe it with a wider lens, you can actually see how all these systems all work together as part of, this wider matrix, let's call it, to encapsulate the mind and keep you programmed, propping up all of those systems. So, and defending those systems. So that's why obviously during COVID, you had a lot of people that were screaming and shouting saying, you're going to kill granny, like, what do you know? Where's your PhD? Like all those, and so that's the programming coming up in people straight away because of where they are and their own frequency. So we're all highly dimensional, uh, vibrant frequency beings, right? So we all, our body, everything works on a frequency. Again, they know this. Um, just like we all have an auric field, which is made up of different, different bodies. We have like 7 main ones, and that, your biggest auric field can be felt up to like 2 meters plus away. That's why they wanted everybody standing 2 meters away from each other during COVID, so you weren't interconnecting with each other's auric fields and feeling each other's energy. A lot of people didn't even realize this at the time about themselves. That's why they wanted you to wear the mask, so it covers your throat, so you can't speak truth and you can't receive truth. And it's all, if anybody watching, knows about the energy centers in your body, your chakras. Obviously, they're all colored, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So they're all targeted through COVID to basically keep you shut off and disconnected from source. So everything from shoving a pointless stick up your nose, and getting you to do it yourself. Right, so you're giving your autonomy away by shoving a stick up your nose to break the blood-brain barrier, which connects to your third eye or your pineal gland, which in essence is our sacred microchip, right? Which is our intuition, which helps you work all the bullshit out. And then obviously you have the crown in the top of the head, which connects you to source, and that is what they wanted to shut off in everybody. So that's why, the poisonous jabs were very much about shutting off the hearts of people and shutting off the head of people so they can disconnect us, because of the times we're going through now. So it's all absolutely linked. And in essence, it was a big operation psychologically as well to keep, especially men, in like the base 3 energy centers, the base 3 chakras. And this is, again, a heavily programmed agenda. And it's the same in your country, same here, same in the United States. They basically shut the hearts off of men. So they feel like they're just going to work every day to pay the bills, on the tools, whatever it may be, okay, and live their life like that, smashing energy drinks to escape reality, on the way to work. And it makes them live in the base 3 energy centers, which is like where you got your root, where all the fear sits. You got your sacral, which is supposed to be like around your sexual orientation and sexual energy, and then your solar plexus, which is where your courage and everything else comes from. But when you kind of keep people shut off from heart space and you keep them programmed into this mentality, that's why you have so many men who are just addicted to sport at weekends. They go to work all week to pay their taxes, and then they piss all their money up at the wall, through alcohol, sport, often cocaine, accumulators, betting, all that kind of stuff, because they're escaping reality. And then the majority of these men, all gather in a large arena shouting another man's name or abuse. So everything is literally outside of themselves. And it goes really, it just, this agenda goes so deep. These companies actually, they market men with their products and their apps and all this kind of stuff based on the colors of the chakra system. So like, you got your root, which is where all your fear lives and stuff like that, is red. So you got Coca-Cola, you got like Tinder, all this kind of stuff. Again, it's psychologically take the male mind away from who they actually really are, stop them from being a protector, stop them from being a role model, stop them from being, standing in that masculine energy, and actually waking up to the bullshit. So, and then you've got like obviously orange, your sexual energy. That's why they have things like Pornhub, Hooters. It's all done but and targeted like that. So, that agenda in itself is huge. And once you've got the minds and the hearts of men, you've kind of won the battle. And that's why, going back to what I said before, so many women are having to stand in their masculine energy to prop up the men, because they're in somewhat of a shit state. So
Yeah.
as soon as you shut the hearts of men off and they're not doing things from heart space, it means their throats closed. So they're not speaking their truth. So this is why I work with so many guys, to help them release all this. So they keep all this emotion inside. They keep up all this pain, sorrow, guilt and shame, like all within the body, and then they don't release it. So they like you just got men all around the world that are like energizer bunnies, like waiting to explode, and that's why there's so many mental health problems and so much suicide, within men all around the world. So again, the whole COVID narrative wasn't just about getting multiple people injected. It was a huge, multifaceted, omnidirectional war on human consciousness to disconnect us from source, keep us busy, arguing amongst ourselves and on their social media platforms, which was all there for everybody to see.
Yeah, it was clearly there for everyone to see, wasn't it? It was just right out. Any form of media you got, obviously the media was tampered with in terms of certain information. Only the one agenda, the government agenda, and the pro agenda was getting out, not the other agenda. But this is, as you say, it's created an opportunity for me, you and me, to talk about alternative things or the other side of the spectrum. And that's what I learned by working in mainstream. If I don't believe that, what do we got over here? It was an
Mm.
interesting take on
Yeah.
it. But I've also followed you, obviously, through your journey on social media and stuff, where you've gone from military, but then you're looking at something that has copped a fair bit of heat publicly, and it was clearly discredited very early. It was Q. Um, I'd love to get your take on that. It was quickly called QAnon. It was quickly jumped on by, I think, 60 Minutes to say how it's just conspiracy theorists and nutbags. And I know how conspiracy theories have worked out. Most are winning and most are being correct. But can you take us on your journey of first hearing about Q, and whether you think it's legit, or do you think it's crap, or is it disinformation, or do you think there's something there? And obviously, you've got a military angle and a military lens on it that not many people would have.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can only share from my own experience, so please take what resonates. So, you got Q and QAnon. QAnon doesn't exist. QAnon was just another label. It's just like the CIA inventing the term conspiracy theorist after JFK was killed. So again, it's another media spin on something to bring it out as a conspiracy. You only have to look at how Donald Trump has been completely annihilated in by the same country's media for the last decade. When he was leading up to running for presidency in 2016. What a lot of people don't realize is that he's not just a billionaire who wanted more power and to run a country. He was actually ushered in by hundreds of generals from around the world to run for presidency, because if Hillary Clinton, the satanic witch that she is, got into power, like COVID would have been the least of our worries. You know, people, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, they're all part of this huge satanic ring, of pure evil that's been, part of a huge pool of people and families, that run the world, um, to basically totally enslave humanity. Have us in 15-minute cities, have us like literally poisoned daily, but from the sky, poison food, poison water, keep the whole family apart, paying taxes and everything, literally enslaving us all. So it was either carry out a military coup, which was on the brink of happening in 2015, or get a candidate to do it legitimately and run for office and win fairly to actually show that elections, you know, can go beyond being rigged, because they've been rigged every time. Obviously, in that term, 2016 to 2020, Trump went around the whole world, and he actually went around the whole world carrying out the executive orders, namely Executive Order 13818, which is about crimes against humanity, child trafficking, etc., which is the worst pandemic in the world. Millions of children go missing a year, and all under our noses. And then you got Executive Order 13848, which is the illegalities of basically being complicit in the interference of general election or US elections, and at every account there has been. So, also during that period, he sorted things out with Middle East. He sorted things out with North Korea, because North Korea was actually puppeteered and governed by the deep state, basically, so they could use North Korea to carry out nuclear testing and basically nuclear weapons on the people, but under the guise that they were the enemy. So they were basically using him. Donald Trump broke that mold, and he and obviously it's not just him. We're talking him and like the military that actually he's the commander in chief of. Obviously, he was then complete the whole 2020 election was rigged in America. Through the Biden administration. We've got to remember Biden was the vice president to Obama as well, and they actually started the war in Ukraine in 2014. But people don't actually look that far back. Where they were shelling Donbass and they were basically using Ukraine as a whole laundering system and laundering center for drugs, for crypto, for money, for children, massively, organ harvesting, all the sickest things you can think of. Because once you kind of surround Ukraine, and then you've got all the other countries around there, signed up to NATO, that completely has crept onto Russia's border. So you've basically got Ukraine, as like a no man's land and a battleground between the two. Ukraine has never actually been a sovereign country. It's never signed its own sovereignty when it was offered to in the 90s. So, again, it's actually Russian territory. So technically, Russia can't invade its own country.
Yeah.
So obviously, with the Q side of things, Q is where that comes in. Q is actually a military intelligence. This is why I connected with it, some time ago, and kind of understood the cryptic drops that it posts and stuff like that. And this is where what tests people's ego and tests people's frequency is that they don't understand the wording, they don't understand the cryptic analysis of it, and they don't get it. So just like most things, if someone don't get something, the ego shuts off the mind, and then they just go, it's all bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And it's just literally because it doesn't resonate at that time, so they don't get it. Well, obviously for myself, being ex-military, having that wide lens, I actually get what's called downloads, as like, a lot of the terms technically used by people, where it's like information that comes into the mind, which you disseminate quite quickly, and millions of people around the world are getting these right now. That we're our lines, we're going through massive DNA upgrades within our bodies, as a result of all these like excessive light that's coming into our body, because we are a light body at the end of the day. And so I've been getting like rapid downloads to do with Q since 7th of the 7th, funny enough, last year. I knew a lot about Q before that and studied it a lot and was making my own, perception on it, perspective. But since 7/7 last year, it's been rapid. And that's why I post a lot of stuff to do with what's happening with what Trump's doing now and then how it subsequently links to Q. It is an off-world intelligence. And again, that might be hard for people to get their head around. So it's not just like a couple of like military people, writing all these cryptic messages. And that's why so many deltas, as they call them. So let's say today's the 8th of May. If you looked at the drops for 8th of May, there's stuff that's relevant to like what's happening now that was actually posted 8th of May 2017 or 2018. There's lots of stuff in there to do with Epstein, Obama's, Clinton's, and obviously that declass is happening right now. Yeah. So it's a way for it's actually an amazing tool if you allow yourself to see it like that, to aid people in their awakening. It's not telling people exactly what's happening. It's making you think so critically, so constructively, that it raises your consciousness. And this is the whole point, is because we're going through what's called an ascension timeline, where we're all ascending in our bodies, in our minds, our consciousness, everything. And this is what Q's there for, is to aid in the ascension of people. And that's why, like Q's last post, which was November 2022, it actually says at the end, like, protect your DNA, ascension. And so it's just showing people. It's not telling people this is the truth, this is this, because everyone around the world are living their own story. They're living their own reality, right? Again, very aware of this. So it's putting information out there that constantly gets you thinking, constantly gets you asking questions. So then you go, right, that's what that meant. Okay, that's what that meant. So just like anything in the world, if something's going to be so heavily criticized and literally pulled apart from the media, there's some truth around it, and that there's some credibility around it. So part of my role in this journey, as you know, is raising people's awareness on the masses, whether that's through our live events or our retreats in Portugal or our online community. But it's also from a military perspective to show everybody that we are and have been in the biggest covert military operation the world has ever seen. And Q is actually part of that to help people awaken to the actual wider picture of this covert military operation. So, you know, Donald Trump's always been the commander in chief. You know, if people have actually taken the time to look at Robo Biden, as I like to call him, you know, who was in office 2021 onwards till recently, you know, I've been showing people that his fake inauguration, you know, with a fake Biden, because it doesn't look anything like the original Biden, was actually at Arlington War Cemetery. And, you know, the fact is that a cemetery tells you everything. You could clearly see, and I was showing people from a military perspective that the so-called military presence that were there weren't even wearing correct uniforms. They were literally at central casting. You know, they were all wearing masks, funny enough, because that's what the rhetoric was, obviously, at the time. But Biden also had 3 cannons at his funeral. The only presidents to have 3 cannons is for a funeral. If it's an inauguration, you have 4 cannons. So all the optics were there showing people. And again, this is the wider part of showing people the optics as part of this awakening process. And again, Q shows us that as well. You know, I really encourage people to actually go and look at photos and videos of recent Biden compared to the Biden that was the vice president under Obama. It is a completely different person. So a puppet has actually been in there, literally destroying the United States of America. You know, flooding America with illegals and fentanyl, you know, turning every city into a hellhole. Just like we've got Keir Starmer doing here in the UK. You know, he's clearly an actor that's literally destroying the country on purpose to wake people up. Because, you know, I guess the same as in Australia. There's more people on the breadline now than there's ever been before.
Yeah.
Because of these corrupt governments and their agendas, right?
Yeah, same thing
I do.
here, AJ. Like
Yeah.
we just had a recent election, and obviously that was only last weekend here, and this will obviously go up in a couple of weeks. But Albanese got in, which is the Labor government, even though everyone said they can't get in because unemployment's shocking, cost of living's through the roof, immigration's through the roof, housing prices and rental prices are unbelievably terrible. All the same things. It's the same playbook. So do you
Yeah.
believe that this is a big wake up script and everything will be fine in time? Because, you know, for me that got into this stuff, I sat back because I'm an inquisitive person. I found it all fascinating. I'm like, someone says, that's not happening. I'm the person that goes, I don't know, well, let's see and what resonates. And, you know, I'm inquisitive by nature, but for the people who are sitting back going, oh no, we've got another 3 years of Labor government. Do you think this is a
Yeah.
playbook to go, wake up, you stupid Aussies? This is really what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same in the UK, right? So all we've known is politics, you know, since we were born. One red and blue, and it's the same in every country. You know, them and us, red and blue, different, and none of them keep their promises. None of them say what they're going to do. But like the you know, the population of the UK, Australia, America, Canada, same countries go back for more every time.
Yeah.
So not only are they showing you the voting is absolutely BS and it's all rigged, you know, this is part of it. So you put people in another election to show them it's rigged, to get them to question it's rigged, to get them to question everything. And that's what I'll go back to the Q thing. You know, I always say when people call it Q anon, and I say break the word down. Q Westia anon. Question on everything. And that's again what it's designed for. So you're questioning the voting system, you're questioning politics. You know, if you break the word politics down, poly means many, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. You know, so and it's the same in every country because they are. And it's you know what I mean? Government control the mind. It's, you know, it's all there to control the people and get people giving their power away en masse to vote for people in their areas and their constituencies, wherever that may be. So, you know, in UK, there's something around 600, 700 members of parliament, MPs that represent people. and none of them have got the people's best interest at heart. We don't. None of our countries need these people in office. They're just little puppets that are there for you to write your letters to because you're pissed off with your council tax. You got someone to whinge to. They're just literally foot soldiers. Um, when they're all of them are involved with secondary businesses, laundering money, trafficking children, especially here in the UK. It's horrendous. They all use social services, the police, and the judiciary system to all work hand in hand to displace children. And all these crimes against humanity are part of this wider project right now, which is coming to the surface, which is why you're seeing in America, actual like I posted yesterday, they've arrested over 200 people in 5 days from the executive orders that are actually being carried out. So Trump's executive orders are being carried out. We've just had the Reform Party here in the UK suddenly occupy loads of seats, and I can blatantly see, I only have to look at my doorstep, that a lady, Andrea Jenkins, is now the mayor of Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire is a very pivotal place in the UK. You've got Lincoln Cathedral here, again, and the other half of the Magna Carta resides here, and it's actually about bringing back the essence of the Magna Carta and its constitution. She's now in the seat, and already she's like banning anything to do with climate change, trying to get rid of the solar panel farms, trying to get all these immigrants out of the hotels. Like, she's blatantly working, as well as all these other people that are now in these seats under the executive orders from the United States. So I genuinely believe that the United States are using a political party, because that's how people still see things run, to basically carry out the executive orders that are happening in the United States, and that's happening rapidly. And I believe the same will happen in Australia. They'll use they'll get the Australian people to see how horrendous politics is, how it's all rigged. That because everything's got to be done based on behavioural science, I guess, and the social engineering that's taking place in each country. Because we were all treated differently in COVID, weren't we? That's the perfect evidence of how you treat every country differently. It's exactly the same this way around. Get the Australian people to just get so pissed off in life that they don't want to be part of those systems anymore. And but what that does is it awakens people. So it might feel like you're being broken, but actually it's helping you shed all this old shit that we've been through, so you can step into this new earth, and because we are the creators. So it's getting rid of the governments, collapsing the monarchy, all that kind of stuff, and the grip that has in the world. So it's allowing people in every country to step into that new light, I guess we could call it, so that we create everything. We create new earth. We build new earth, because we've not had an opportunity to do that, because we've been governed, and controlled and put into little boxes, right? So we all live a box to box life, no matter what country you live in your new build house, which gets thrown up in like 6 weeks, and then pay a ridiculous mortgage on it and interest and all that kind of shit. And I guess with that, like, it's collapsing, tax and all that kind of stuff. And this is why, Trump is collapsing everything to do with Ukraine, is collapsing everything to do with Yemen and all this kind of stuff. Is because we need to collapse all the war timelines. Because once you collapse all the war timelines, again, we've not been at a war timeline since we were born either, have we? Nor our parents. There's always a war timeline, and that's the only thing that keeps the US dollar going and allows them to print money, and then just keep war going somewhere all the time. Yeah. So as soon as you collapse the war timelines, tax is abolished, because tax was only created to prop up war hundreds of years ago. And that's why Trump's been talking about. Yeah, Trump's been talking about. Yeah, Trump's been talking about abolishing income tax quite a lot. Yeah, and he's in line with collapsing what's going on in Ukraine, Russia. So, and that's why Q always says as well, Israel's safe for last.
So explain that to me. Why is Israel?
Israel's got to be safe for last. Israel is a quote unquote a fake state. Yeah, it was created post World War II by the same Zionists who were controlling World War II. So you create Israel, a country which then expanded massively, and to what it is now, where, you know, completely controlling Palestine, the Palestinian people, Bethlehem, all the Holy Lands, but also controlling the waters. And you know, it goes quite dark and deep in terms of we've got you know, highly energetic ley lines all around the world. You know, part of because we live on a grid system at the end of the day, and the St. Michael ley line goes from the east coast of Ireland all the way down through Cornwall in England, down through France, Italy, and you can actually Google this, and you'll see those St. Michael um, kind of like castle-y, churchy type, you know, monastery type places on these key points in the ley line all the way down. Well, that ley line finishes at the waters in Palestine, Israel. So all the genocide is being carried out in a ritualistic fashion, like on that highly energetic ley line. So it's not just about control and war; it's actually highly satanic. Um, and they use Israel as a fake state still to carry out all of these kind of things. And that's why in the past he said we fully back Israel, we fully back Israel, because you know Israel, Mossad, you know, which is the intelligence service there, you know, one of these Five Eyes countries, and Mossad was part of carrying out 9/11. Mossad created ISIS with Barack Obama. So ISIS actually stands for Israeli Specialist Intelligence Service. You know, they create the enemy to then carry out their agendas. Hence why I think it was around about 2014-ish, somewhere around then, you know, ISIS were going all through Syria, destroying ancient sites because of again, they're using war to destroy all the ancient sites and the powers that they have. Um, that then also allowed mass immigration, flooding Europe full of immigrants because they've created war. And that's why we have the problems in Europe we do now. You know, Sweden, of all places, full of beautiful, highly intelligent Nordic beings, is now the rape capital of Europe. So, again, this is all part of a deep, dark agenda, and it's all created through Israel. Um, the When Trump said about you know, taking over Gaza, flattening it, all this stuff, like people are kicking off about it. But I say to every single person, have you been there? Have you seen the state of the place because of Israel? So why wouldn't you flatten it and build a whole new earth for these highly spiritual, highly connected people who have known nothing but war and destruction and famine because of the hands of Israel? So that's why when it says Israel last, that means that like once Israel's collapsed, that is the end of the war timelines, which obviously then brings in abolishes tax, abolishes, you know, all the negative stuff. But Israel is obviously heavily connected to the monarchy as well, and I believe we'll see the death of King Charles very soon. Um, and as I've shown on many of my posts and stuff like that, you know, and Q shows us checkmate king is checkmate. That's a signal. We've already seen the death of the Pope recently. Again, it's all linked, which is the you know the fall of the Vatican, and the Vatican's had a huge control over the entire world. You know, namely, obviously, pushing the Roman Catholic agenda, which is all about control, suppression, which has been going on for hundreds of years, obviously, since Roman times. And yeah, I truly believe we're now seeing the chess pieces kind of finally come into fruition, and I think we'll see checkmate very soon.
When you say very soon, everyone wants a date, and you know, it feels like it's been forever. And you know, I've got a friend who's been following this for 20 years, and like yourself, I've probably only woken up the last 3 or 4 years through personal experience. But do you see it turning good? And I know you spend a lot of time mission consciousness doing your own stuff to awake people and effectively take control of their own lives. Do you see those
Yeah.
opportunities, or as you mentioned, the light on the into people, consciousness rising? Do you think, as people would say, it's game over already?
Yeah, I think many of these people are already gone. You could clearly see that that Pope wasn't the original Pope. You know, we already mentioned Biden. There's so many doubles of people. these figureheads. I think like because part of this worldwide military operation is it goes hand in hand with the level of consciousness of people. So 2 years ago you couldn't be showing people what they're seeing now on mass, right? You got everything from Epstein files, the Pope dying, to war, to
P. Diddy.
the shit, P Diddy, the trafficking, like everything, like all coming at once, right? Um, so people wouldn't have been able to accept that information because at the end of the day, we're quantum computers, and it depends what frequency and bandwidth that you're on to be able to accept the information. Just like during COVID, many of us were shaking our loved ones like that, like, why can't you see what I can see? Just giving them a little slap. But like they just couldn't see it because their bandwidth just wasn't on that level just now. Now millions of those people are like, holy crap, yeah, I see what you're on about, and I've had lots of people in my family like have actually actively said to me, wow, I see now. And then when I told them about, like, none of them had any idea that I was doing all these protests, that I interviewed all these high profile people. They just couldn't connect to it. They just thought I was a lunatic, right? Um, well, I think it was the same day I interviewed Dr. Peter McCulloch, and he was literally showing the data of like the amount of children that were getting hospitalized with myocarditis. One of my brothers put on his Facebook hashtag get boosted, like literally the same day.
Yeah.
So it's like it was mad. So yeah, absolutely. It's all got to be in line with the level of consciousness. That's why we're seeing all this D class right now. Um, the, what it is that I'm really seeing on my own social media because I posted a lot of stuff to do with like Trump and Q, as well as what I'm doing and how that intertwines with like the UK, etc., etc. People are still got those old ego patterns, right? So they're going like, oh, he's the king of the vaccines, bringing out warp speed, and he promotes Israel, he's a Zionist, and all this kind of stuff. So people still have that disconnect because they haven't actually researched the finer details of it. So I mentioned, Israel is a terrorist state, right, in itself, with a horrendous intelligence service which is controlled by the crown, etc., etc. If people actually done the research on this and actually looked at from an intel perspective, if you're the president or president-elect or whatever, you're in one, especially with the United States, you're in one of the most powerful positions in the world. Okay, you could do anything. So you can turn up to any meeting you want, create any meeting. So why wouldn't you and your team go to someone like Israel, infiltrate it, get all the information you need, see things with your own eyes, and or give them orders of what's coming? Because then it's not by email.
Yeah.
And so just because they're pictured with these people, these Zionists, doesn't mean that they are one of them. It's just the same as like everyone's screaming. I'll show you the level of programming. I posted yesterday about Kash Patel and Bondi were talking about over 200 arrests made by high-profile traffickers of children, which have extorted hundreds and thousands of children, right? Innocent children that have been trafficked and had the most heinous crimes carried out on them, sold for slavery. Yet people still commented, yeah, that's great, but what about the names on the Epstein files? I'm like, are you for real? So again, people are still stuck in this mindset of like they need a celebrity's name to come out. But not all of those celebrities are paedophiles who are on that list. Because if every single person was, we wouldn't know about it because
Yeah.
they'd keep all that secret on that island. So I guarantee you'll have people whose task was to go there and actually report back to the NSA who was who's the actual wrong ones, who's repeatedly going back there. And again, this is why I believe that the Epstein files are taking longer to come out. It's not because they're hiding anything. It's because there would be actors, actresses, celebrities, sports stars, this, that, and the other, that in their early days would have been invited there for what they thought was a big party, hanging out with all your celebrity mates, would have been drugged, would have been manipulated, and it would have literally like mentally destroyed them that they wouldn't have ever returned, but they're on that flight log list, right? So you've got to disseminate between who those people are and who the repeat returning offenders are. That actually takes time. They're showing they've got hundreds and hundreds of videos of thousands of children being abused. Like every single one of the videos has to be categorically gone through to create a case per person, right? You can't just go like the blanket. Yeah, you're all pedos, right? You'll get executed. That's not actually gonna work well in the current 3D state and through law. How do you drive home real law and new laws and real law if you're doing the opposite and just blanket punishing any and everybody who's just on some list that's been published on the internet for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
So people need to look at this with a wider lens and go and understand there's lots of infiltration involved on purpose to get us this information in the first place. And think of it from a military perspective. What would you do if you were tasked to go there and gain as much information as possible? So yes, people like want to see names come out, this, that, and the other. And I believe in that Diddy case and stuff like that, it is just is a Pandora's box for that. But it's also all in line. You got to think like the network of traffickers around the world is so expansive. 8 million children go missing a year. Many of these children get taken underground. There's one of the largest, or it's the largest tunnel system you could ever imagine. It goes across the whole globe, right? Even in UK alone, there's tunnel systems everywhere that connect to Air Force bases and things like that. Buckingham Palace, you name it, right? So all of this has to be taken down as well. So it's not just like getting arrested a few people. It's not just satisfying people on TikTok by saying, "Oh, Megan Fox or like Lady Gaga is a wrong one." Oh, okay, yeah, cheers for that. But like, how does it actually change your life by knowing that? Really, how does it change your future? How does it change like your want to create new worth by just being told that a certain celebrity is a wrong one? Okay, that's one person, right? So for that one celebrity, there's 1,000 traffickers out there, all getting paid and all abusing children. So who's more important here in the grand scheme of things? Take out the actual trafficking networks that actually supply these celebrities with the children in the first place, or are we just all going to sit around crying about when the names on the Epstein files going to come out,
Yeah.
whilst thousands of kids are still being trafficked?
Well,
That's what kind of blows my mind a little.
and this is the thing you'd probably see, and it's probably different terminology. It might be bangers and mash and a pint at the pub for you. For us, we call it a palmy or a palmer schnitzel and a beer. And people want to be able
Yeah,
to go to their sport, live their life, and do whatever because there is that life of so-called distraction. So for me, it's got to be the trigger point. So it's either the two trigger points that really can upset the family unit is either health or money. Do you see us having a lot of talking about currency revaluations, particularly in
yeah,
obliterated countries who talk about Iraq? Some have also meant Vietnam,
mm,
Indonesia, Zimbabwe. Do you see, because Trump has always said an even playing field, if you know what I
mm,
mean. So do you see that being a pressure point? And even this week, we've seen Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, says it might be a good idea to own a lot of other currencies. Like that stuff just doesn't happen for no reason.
yeah. And Donald Trump actually came out and said the other day they're going to be making a huge announcement, like biggest announcement they've ever made, either Thursday or Friday. They're going to be in Saudi Arabia. They're going to be in the Middle East. So they're going to be like near Iraq anyway. The Iraqi dinar is literally going live. I follow it quite a lot, and it's actually kind of a trigger for our new financial system. So currency is being revalued and backed by precious metals, namely gold, silver, but also stable tokens, which are going to be part of our future quantum financial system, which is mainly based off XRP and XLM, so Stellar Lumen,
Yeah.
which is going to run off the Stellar network. So the Stellar network's obviously all linked, but basically like a foundation of the quantum financial system. So I've actually been heavily investing in the Stellar network and what that brings, because there's many of us that are that I wouldn't say have been chosen. We've kind of just like consciously gone into it, and it's people who have got communities and things like we do, because it's all part of a worldwide redistribution of wealth, for everybody. So we're talking about the destruction of the straw man funds. So the whole birth certificate
Yeah.
funds that we've all been part of and signed up to since birth. That's all going to be collapsed. That's why Donald Trump did a whole executive order on removing paper straws.
Yeah.
That was the coding for it. We're going to remove all the paper straws, so it's removing the straw man. That's actually what it was. And he said, they're making a big announcement, and they purposely put a video out that was 44 seconds long, again, so that people like myself instantly would be like, what's Q post 44? Q post 44 says, before POTUS departs on Friday, so he's already talked about leaving Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
He will send an important message via Twitter. God bless.
And he hasn't
So
been
that like
for a long while, has he?
no. So again, it's all linked, and I think the big announcement will be around the financial system. Here in the UK, you've got large corporations that are saying they've been cyber attacked, but actually, if you actually do research on who their main banking um, entity is, they're all with HSBC. I know HSBC has been connected to the Stellar network for the last 2 years because that's the system it's going to be running off. So it is going to be a very, very good time for us all, but it's not going to come easy. As I mentioned before, I get like a lot of downloads and stuff, and I got like a huge download when I was on the plane on the way to Portugal running our retreat about the whole financial system and future technology and stuff like that. But we're all going to have to learn about economy. It's not just we're not going to be handed millions so that you can go and buy loads of Lambos and wrap them around trees and that. It's we're gonna have to learn constitutional law, common law, and the quantum financial system basically encapsulates the education system, the healthcare system. It's not just all about money, money, money. Um, it's also you can have all the money in the world, ladies and gents, but what are you going to do about your health to make sure that you're around to actually enjoy the fruits of life
Yeah.
outside of the tyranny that we've all lived through? So it all works hand in hand, and obviously in educating our children as well. So yeah, I think because I speak to a lot of the admins within the Stellar network as well. This is May is the abundant month for us, and the big change that we're going to start to see coming through everywhere. So yeah, these gold-backed currencies are absolutely, well, days away. It wouldn't surprise me if it's actually this weekend that they kind of talk about it, properly, and that'll see even further crashes in the stock market because the stock market is just a big laundering system, based on fiat currency and greed. It's just another way for making the rich richer.
Yeah, well, yeah, I could chat to you for hours about all this sort of stuff. And for our people listening too, if they want to touch and reach out to you, how's the best way? I know you're on Instagram, AJ Roberts. You've also got your AJ Roberts Show, the podcast, and obviously you're doing some coaching and some consciousness coaching as well. How's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what people want to chat about, really. I guess I use my Instagram a lot to put a lot of information out there. It's Mr. underscore AJ Roberts. And I'm on X as well. I put a lot more content out about what's going on in the world on X. And I like to wind a few people up on there, like just to keep them on their toes. Um, but yeah, if anyone wants to look at obviously the services that me and my partner, Corin, we do, our retreats, our live events, or even join our online community, which is growing by the day. That I'm at missionconsciousness.com. Is that we've actually got like more Aussies and Kiwis joining us now because I run live meditations on a Monday evening in the UK, so it's morning for you guys. Um, and then I do like a weekly decode where I literally go through decodes all the time, not just do a cue, but like all sorts of stuff on a Wednesday night. And obviously, it's from people all around the world. Last night, I did one on the rebirth of ancient technology. One of my really close friends, who gets tons of downloads, is very connected to the pyramids and all that kind of ancient tech that's being brought forward. So I got her to join us, and it was amazing. We had a really great conversation about how we're connecting to all this ancient technology around the world, and what that actually means, and connecting to the original templates of Gaia and all this kind of stuff. But it's a great place for people to meet and connect, with like-minded people around the world. So that's something that we've been building for the last 2 years, and it's going really, really strongly, because we know there's a lot of people out there, regardless of where they are in the world, that maybe feel alone, can't speak their truth. So we've built a consciously censor-free platform to allow people to just be themselves. And we've even got a Divine Connections portal on there as well. So we've actually got quite a few people who are now together.
You do a dating app. You're the new Tinder.
Yeah, but it's conscious Tinder.
Yeah.
Conscious heart space Tinder. It's amazing. We've got people coming to our Portugal retreat at the start of June, who met on there, who are literally like, you can't separate them. So it's all going in the right direction. But it's all about the people, and that's what we're about. It's all about community. It's all about the people. I don't need millions of pounds of like. I'm a service to humanity, and very much living my soul mission, and I'll continue to do so. And that's reflected on what the people receive.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job. Appreciate you fitting us in, and we'll distribute everywhere. And if people have got any questions, then reach out on social media. And thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure. And much love to the people of Australia. You guys are awesome. You've had it hard. You really have. Showing all the people in the UK just how hard, relentless it was over there, and still continues to be so. But just know you are on a good path. You are going to good places. You just got to step forward, and start, stop giving your power away to things. Start taking your power and your sovereignty back, and your whole reality will reflect that, like 100%.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ballsy Show. We'll have another episode up there soon. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so you can comment below. And if you feel like supporting us, you can also donate us a coffee. That link's below. Thanks again.